Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners meeting, and we'll call that meeting to order. Our prayer will be led by Commissioner Adam Coggin, and then the pledge to the flag by Commissioner Doug Schaefer.
First, I'd like to thank the commissioners for allowing me the honor of serving as your chaplain for this past year. This is my last night to do that, and it has been a true honor, and I appreciate you allowing me to do that. I want to, the prayer tonight will be some words that were made to song from St. Francis of Assisi. If you will, bow with me. Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Where there is hatred, God, let your love increase. Walls of pride and prejudice shall cease when we are your instruments of peace. Where there is hatred, God, we will show love. Where there is injury, we will never judge. Where there is blindness, we pray for sight. Where there is darkness, we will shine your light. Where there is sadness, we will bear their grief. To the millions crying for relief, we will be your instruments of peace. In your Son's name, amen.
Amen.
Will you please join me in honoring our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer? Here. Commissioner Black? Here. Commissioner Jordan? Here. Commissioner P? Here. Commissioner Cook? Here. Commissioner Jernigan? Here. Commissioner Farley?
Here.
Commissioner Jones?
Here.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Here.
Commissioner Turner?
Here.
Commissioner Allen?
Here.
Commissioner Stevens?
Here.
Commissioner Jordan?
Here.
Commissioner Bloom?
Here.
Commissioner Coggin?
Present.
Commissioner Young?
Here.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner McAdoo?
Here.
Commissioner Ely?
Here.
Commissioner Gooch?
Here.
Commissioner Sereno?
Here.
21 present.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. You have before you a copy of the minutes of the last meeting. Is there a motion? Commissioner Farley.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we approve the minutes as mailed.
Second, Commissioner Jernigan. Did anyone have any corrections or additions? Seeing none, then you're ready to vote. All of you in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Thank you very much. Next, we have a resolution of sympathy that will be read by Commissioner Tiffany Jones in regard to PFC Vincent E. Gamon III. Commissioner Jones.
If anyone from the families here, would you please come forward now? Okay. Over 234 years ago, our founding fathers declared independence from England. Since then, many men and women have fought so that we can sit here tonight in these chambers, making tough decisions for our county. I'm so thankful for the sacrifice these brave men and women have made on my behalf so that I have the opportunity to stand here in front of you tonight. God has blessed this nation beyond belief, and to him I am thankful. He blessed us with the life of a young man who gave all to his country. On August the 7th, Vincent Gamon III was killed in action in Afghanistan for our freedom. I will never fully understand the brevity of his sacrifice and bravery. Because I'm beyond words, I simply say thank you. 3 teachers from the school in which Vincent graduated gave me short statements which I would like to quickly read. Vincent was the type of student that would come up to your desk or stop in the hallway just to talk. His laugh would just brighten my day, and he was one of the kindest people I've ever met, Miss Olga Pace. I will remember Vincent as a sincere, caring, and genuine young man. He achieved far beyond our expectations and represented his school, community, family, and country with great pride. Mrs. Kelly Medford. I had Vincent as a student of criminal justice during his senior year. Knowing that I served in the Marine Corps, we regularly talked about the different branches of the armed forces, and he asked me one day toward the end of the school year, Mr. Key, why did you join the Marines? I told him because it is the toughest branch and I wanted to see if I had what it takes. He chewed on that for a while, and later he asked me, "Do you think I could make it in the Marines?" Well, the Vincent I knew then was overweight and not exactly disciplined, except to have fun his senior year. So I told him honestly that it would be the hardest thing he has ever done. But if he wanted it bad enough, he could make it. I heard from a few students over the summer, and they said that Vincent was running a lot and had lost a lot of weight. He joined the Marines and went to Parris Island shortly after graduation. He came to see me at the beginning of last school year, and I had a hard time believing the transformation. He was lean and had lost about 50 pounds. His face was thin. He was in his dress blues uniform, and it was perfectly creased and polished. He had a different demeanor about him. He shook my hand with confidence and maturity, and he proudly represented the United States Marine Corps. No longer was he my student, but now my brother. My heart goes out to his family and his comrades, and although we will never know until heaven why he left us, we do know the answer to the question he asked, "Do I have what it takes?" Semper Fidelis, Vincent, Mr. Rodkey. Whereas it was with great sadness that the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners learned of the death of Private First Class Vincent E. Gamone III, a friend of many, and whereas Private First Class Gamone passed away August 7, 2010, while supporting combat operations in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, and whereas he is survived by his parents, Vincent and Lorraine Gamone, his fiancée, Jessica West, and grandmother, Eleanor Correa, and Private First Class Gamone enlisted in the Marines in September 2008 and was assigned to 1st Battalion, 2nd Marine Regiment, 2nd Marine Division, 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and whereas he lived in Christiana and was a 2008 graduate of Eagleville High School, where he was an original member of the Eagleville High School Marching Band, a member of JROTC for 4 years, the Raider Rifle Team, and the Drill Color Guard, and whereas he was a member of St. Rose of Lima Catholic Church, and whereas we know that his passing has caused great sadness to his family and friends. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners at its regular session on the 16th day of September 2010 does hereby extend sincere sympathy to the family of Private First Class Vincent E. Gamone III. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution of sympathy be forwarded to the family of Private First Class Gamone by the clerk of this legislative body. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Second, Commissioner Farley and several others. All of you in favor of this, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Mrs. Jones. This is certainly an example of a young man that has served and willing to sacrifice, and this is what has made our great country great, and we just appreciate the service of this person and many others like him. Okay. Next, it's a time for public comments, and I will remind those that are speaking that we have a 3-minute time limit, and there is a device on the podium up here that will indicate when your time is up when the red light comes on. So come forward. We ask that you give us your name and address, and we trust that every person here is a resident of this county. If not, it's really not appropriate for you to be speaking, but in any event, that's up to you to give us your name and address. So we're going to call you off in the name and the list, in the order that the list was provided as you called in to request this permission to speak during this 30-minute period. So our first person to speak is Mr. Kevin Fisher. Please come forward and give us your name and address. Okay. Our next person on the list is Mr. Fred Dunn. Mr. Dunn. I don't see that person here. Third on our list is Miss Lisa Moore. Mrs. Moore. Next on our list is Miss Lima Sabanati.
Hi, my name is Lima Spinati, and I live on 1507 Buckingham Drive, 37129. I was born in Tennessee, and I've lived in Murfreesboro since I was 1 year old. I went to public school and graduated as a valedictorian of Siegel High School's class of 2009, where I was student body vice president of service. In the past 4 years, I've logged around 250 community service hours in places like the Salvation Army and the Discovery Center. And most importantly, I'm a registered Rutherford County voter. I wake up every day knowing how blessed I am to be living, working, and being surrounded by some of the most amazing, kind, and wonderful people in this world. I thank God for being born in a nation with the greatest freedoms and rights for all of its citizens. And I would never want anyone to take advantage of them. So you see, I'm actually not very different from any of you or your kids or your grandkids. Except for one thing, I was born and raised as a patriotic American Muslim. This past weekend, Americans of all faiths mourned the lives of 3,000 innocent victims that died on September 11, 2001. But you see, those attacks were not the only significant event that occurred on that tragic day, because on September 11, 2001, my religion was hijacked by extremists who falsely claimed to be carrying out the word of God. But I will not apologize for them. My religion is that of peace, and anyone who carries out such acts of crimes against mankind is not one who truly follows the teachings of Islam. In the words of Thomas Jefferson, the constitutional freedom of religion is the most inalienable and sacred of all human rights. Today, his words, as well as those of the Constitution, are being challenged. In the past 5 months, we have allowed those who hurt us all to achieve their goal in dividing this community and this nation. We cannot let them succeed. We are one nation, one people, and we must stand together no matter what our religious beliefs are to rid this country of those who do not want the best for it. We should celebrate our similarities and appreciate our differences instead of pointing fingers and disputing one another. After all, hate can only blind us from the truth. It is only love and understanding that can move this country forward. So I ask you today, as an American citizen, as a Tennessee resident, and as a human being, to stand with me and be grateful for the fact that Christians, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus, and anyone else can worship in the United States of America in peace without fear of the unknown or fear of the other. And finally, I'd like to thank you, County Commissioners, for your strength and ability to uphold the laws of this great nation. Thank you so much for not yielding to the immense pressure that you've been receiving from the city, as well as from outsiders with political as well as personal agendas. We appreciate your hard work in upholding constitutional laws. And to everyone, have a wonderful Constitution Week.
Thank you. Out of respect for time and our other speakers, so we can have as many people speak as possible, please refrain from showing your expression of appreciation or opposition even. Next, we have Jace Short. Jace Short. Please give us your name and address.
My name is Jace Short, and I live at 1434 East Main Street. Here's proof that I'm not from out of town, my driver's license. Our community has been dealt a great blow with the events of the last few months. In concert with other forces around the nation, from New York to Florida to California to Illinois, some local residents have taken to the streets in order to contest the basic civil rights of some of our citizens, namely Muslim Americans. Though Muslim Americans make up less than 1% of the population here, their presence is suddenly, at this time, after decades of peacefully residing in our community, coming under suspicion by certain political elements in this town. All of this is part of a general wave of Islamophobia. Islamophobia refers to the conflation of ethnic, religious, racial, and national identities in order to construct a Muslim other who can be defined as inhuman and cancerous. It is much the same kind of phenomenon as modern anti-Semitism, which conflates the religious and ethnic identities of Judaism into one Jewish other for much the same purposes. These same political forces have subjected citizens who have stood up for their civil rights and the civil rights of their neighbors with a good deal of slander. Despite the numerous documented death threats against Islamic Center members, the opposition has gone as low as questioning the lawful burial of a resident at the new site on Veals and Bradyville. Even when the deceased in question's grandson arrived to confirm the legality of the burial, also incidentally confirmed by law enforcement authorities, the opposition continued and continues to dishonor this family in the most mean-spirited way imaginable. Why now? When the opposition says this is about water studies and the like, perhaps we should recall our not-too-distant past, in which African Americans were systematically excluded from certain spaces under the same banner of water studies and declining property values. But this is not a uniquely Southern phenomenon. In fact, forces involved here in Murfreesboro have also attended events in New York City in which Dutch neo-fascist politicians have been featured speakers. Others have attended fundraisers for the church in Gainesville, which threatened to burn the Quran. All of this is happening in concert around this country to influence elections on behalf of an agenda of hate. But I think a better Murfreesboro was shown a few days after the arson at the Islamic Center's future site, when hundreds of residents came out to the square to hold a vigil in opposition to the violence perpetrated against a small but important and vital component of our community. That vigil's footage was carried around the world and the nation, but with much less fervor than those of signs accusing our Muslim neighbors and friends of all sorts of nonsense. Our image has been tarnished around the world. A better Murfreesboro is upon us. I can feel it. Its hope exists when we let go of the hate that divides us. I hope we can all be done with this blight that has stricken our community soon. But ultimately, that is up to us.
Thank you, sir. Oh, excuse me. Let's move on. So we're going to have time for one more before we have to go to our normally scheduled 6:30 public hearings regarding one zoning resolution amendment. Mr. Thomas Moss. Mr. Moss.
My name is Thomas Moss. I live at 322 North Manny Avenue. And tonight my point is to the county commissioners. And tonight, yet again, you have heard statements for the proposed Islamic Center of Murfreesboro. At the last meeting, those who support our rights as Americans were not heard. Tonight we will be. It is important that you, as elected officials, uphold your prior legally binding decision to grant our Muslim neighbors a permit to build their new place of worship. Fear, intimidation, and misinformation are tactics being used to sway the decision-making process. In this chamber of law and justice, let it be known that intimidation and misinformation will not be tolerated and shall not deter the lawmaking process to suit those interests whose agenda is not based in law and truth. Some of the lawmakers seated in this room tonight are newly elected to these seats. To those men and women, I tell you this: a time will come when you will be put in the position to either defend our rights as Americans or further deteriorate the foundation of this government. That decision should be obvious when it comes. As this debate continues, we have heard that this has nothing to do with religion. While it may not entirely have to do with religion, it has sparked a wide range of criticism toward the local Muslim population and their practice of Islam. If this county commission has broken the laws, let us see proof and hold them accountable. However, let us not take our anger and blind rage and cast it upon those who are our neighbors, our law-abiding and peaceful neighbors. I know personally some of you in this room who are opposed to this mosque. I know you are smart enough to realize that you are becoming the very thing that you fight against. As with Islam, a radical minority of residents have had an adverse effect on the majority. Those radicals who oppose this mosque must then also oppose our rights and civil liberties. This is a shame. Let us not use our differences to simply beat each other down. let us use our differences to educate and understand. For example, how many violent acts have been committed by Muslims in Murfreesboro during their almost 30-year time span here? None. Likewise, how many acts of violence were committed by non-Muslim residents during just 1 year? Over 500 acts of violence committed by Murfreesboro residents. These Muslims are not terrorists. They are not violent. They are our neighbors and our friends. Treat them as such. As Jesus Christ stated, love thy neighbor as thyself. In a similar notion, Muhammad, founder of Islam, announces, a man's true wealth hereafter is the good he does in the world to his fellow man. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we've had, okay, it's now 6:30, and we're not finished with the public comments. They will be continued in just a moment. We're not sure our planning, yes, I do see our planning director now. At 6:30, we always have scheduled whatever public hearings that we have on the agenda, and we only have one tonight, so we'll address this. We have finished 10 minutes of our public comment period. We still have 20 minutes, and those on the list will continue to be speaking. So, Mr. Demosy, would you please direct our thoughts to this one zoning resolution amendment that is proposed?
Yes, Mayor Burgess, thank you, and good evening, Mayor and members of the Commission. We just have for your consideration one, what we consider a minor amendment to our zoning resolution tonight regarding pools and a couple other housekeeping amendments that I'll describe. Staff has become aware in recent months that our regulations regarding pools are in need of possible amendment. Pools are considered as detached accessory structures and count toward the total square footage allowed as identified in a chart in our zoning resolution or section 13.04. I'll call your attention on your tables. You should have a copy of our memo along with our regulations as they exist and also showing the proposed amendments. The Board of Zoning Appeals has considered a number of variance requests to the total square footage allowed for detached accessory structures due to the addition of a pool and typically have granted those requests. After researching how other communities have handled regulating pools as far as their size, what staff is proposing to do is to count the pools only toward the maximum 20% lot coverage, which is currently in effect, but not counting them toward the total amount of detached accessory space that a lot is permitted. If you look on that chart on the accessory structure amendment, dated August 23rd of this year, you'll notice, for example, a parcel that has 1 acre or less is allowed 1,200 square foot of detached accessory space, which could be for garages, carports, those kind of things. We would not count pools in that total as we do now. A couple other just minor amendments that we're looking at while we were taking this up. If you look under number 5, where it says fences, wall, and hedges subject to the provisions of section 13.08 of this resolution. That deals with our fence design guidelines. Walls and hedges, especially hedges, don't really fall under that. Walls would just fall under the fence guidelines, so we just struck wall and hedges on that. Under number 9, again, this is just another housekeeping amendment. All signs are subject to the provisions of Article 20, which is our sign regulations. We're not really sure why that statement is there, the accept advertising sign, so we are proposing to strike that. And on the back of that page, you'll see just a couple other minor amendments on there. Again, looking at bulk and location requirements in regards to fences. Under number 1, we just struck walls and hedges on that, again, as hedges typically don't have to meet setbacks. Again, in number 3, same type of amendment there. The last amendment is under E, number 2. No accessory structure shall be constructed. Basically, what this particular provision says is that no accessory structure can be built without the principal structure being constructed first. There are some instances where someone may want to have a fence on their property before the house is built. We do run into that occasionally, so we just propose to accept fences from that particular provision. The Planning Commission did review this, and they did unanimously vote to recommend approval of this, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions of explanation for Mr. Demosy? Okay, if there are no questions then of Mr. Demosy, we will declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone present that wishes to speak for or against this proposed amendment to the zoning resolution? If you are, please come forward and give us your name and address and make your comments. Is there anyone that wishes to speak regarding this zoning amendment? Okay, I don't think I see anyone that wishes to speak. Therefore, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion concerning the amendment? Commissioner Phillips. That motion, do you have a second? Commissioner Sandlin. Is there any discussion? All of you in favor of this, please say aye then. Aye. Are there any opposed? That carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. DeMosi. He would like to make another announcement.
I just want to remind the commissioners about our comprehensive plan steering committee. It's going to be meeting this coming Monday, 6 o'clock at the Board of Education over on South Park Drive, the county's Board of Education building. We do have a draft of the comprehensive plan now that we're reviewing, and that's what would be the topic of discussion at that meeting. So again, 6 o'clock this coming Monday at the Board of Education building on South Park Drive. So if you're able to come, anybody, the public's invited to that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. DeMosi. Now we will return to our public comment period, and we have 20 minutes left on that period of time, and our next speaker will be Mr. Andrew Wallazin. I'm sure I didn't pronounce that properly. Give us your name and address.
Andrew Thomas Wallison, 1245 Aldous Casas Road. My name is Andy, and I am a piece of Murfreesboro. I am a cog of this community, and I fought all summer to keep my home a welcome and open place for all of our residents. Former U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt once proclaimed, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." Then today, my fellow Tennesseans, our enemy is Islamophobia. Do not buy into the ignorance. It is a poison that leads to hate, which has already underlined one instance of physical violence, the arson committed at the site of the future Islamic Center of Murfreesboro. The unspoken shame of our town, of our city, is that our image to the rest of the world is a struggle for equality. The situation has escalated to the point when we, as responsible citizens, can no longer be silent. How many weeks must our community be subject to the spotlight of the media? How many articles in the D&J will it take for us to find peace? Perhaps, though, the problem is a deeper, fundamental question. How many of our Muslim neighbors do you know in flesh and in blood? How much time have you spent attempting to befriend them rather than speculating from behind a computer screen? We must refuse to stand in fear and solidly resist the forces attempting to tear our Murfreesboro apart. Make this stand tonight with yourself, with your family, and with your friends so we can finally put this issue to rest and return to normalcy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have, let's see, Jessica Vincent.
My name is Jessica Vincent. I live at 618 Spencer Drive here in Murfreesboro. I've lived in Rutherford County since I was 2 years old, and I went to St. Rose Catholic Church here in town when I was a child. When that church was built in 1929, the KKK marched right here in Murfreesboro to oppose it. I'd like to think we've come a long way since then. The arson at the Islamic Center site in August tells me that we have not. Though many people have insisted that the opposition to the Islamic Center has nothing to do with religion, the rhetoric of those who have marched and rallied make it clear that religion has a lot to do with their opposition. Unfounded accusations have been made against our friends and neighbors simply because they are Muslim. Many of the same accusations were made against Catholics all those years ago. Now, as then, there is no credible evidence to support such accusations, and yet they continue to be repeated, and even worse, they continue to be believed. Many have suggested that the center could pose some threat to our community, but we've had an Islamic Center here for many years without any detrimental effect. The true threat to this community comes from the spread of hatred and fear. Throughout history, every religion the world over has been both oppressor and oppressed. The claims made about Islam could easily be made about any other religion. No religion is unique in being a force for peace, and no religion is unique in being misused to justify violence. While the vast majority of adherents to any religion would say the key message of their faith is peace, small radical elements have been far more vocal, and while their versions of their respective religions and their messages of hate are not widely accepted, they are widely heard. We cannot fall prey to these fringe groups by blaming vast numbers of people for the actions of a few. Such generalizations are detrimental to our community. They breed fear and distrust and create an environment in which the type of violence we have seen here recently is far more likely to occur. those who have stood in opposition to the Islamic Center on the basis of religion have, like so many radical groups, been extremely vocal, and while their views are not widely accepted, they too are widely heard. But as a member of this community, I know they do not represent Murfreesboro. They have spread fear and lies about our Muslim neighbors and asked our commissioners to break the law to stop the Islamic Center from being built. They set the stage for the recent violence in our community by creating an environment in which it seemed permissible. This is the real problem here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Layla Hantouli. Oh, okay.
My name is Layla Hantouli, and I live at 305 Bradyville Pike in Murfreesboro. Let me begin by saying that I was born and raised in Tennessee. I grew up listening to conservative talk radio and contemporary Christian music on the way to school every day and to church 3 times a week, every week. I'm a Southerner through and through, and I'm now a resident of Murfreesboro. So to say that I'm not sensitive to everyone's beliefs and lifestyles here would be entirely incorrect. The way I see it, there's 2 types of opposition to the community center. The first says that they are opposed on secular grounds. Let me tell you, if you're genuinely opposed to the Islamic Community Center because of traffic, soil, or water conditions, I would like to commend your zeal. For if you are this passionate about such insignificant things, imagine what would happen if you channeled this energy into things that really mattered. What if you held marches, waved signs, and raised money to fight things like intoxicated driving on our streets, poverty in some of our fellow Rutherford County families' homes, or the dropout rate of our local high schools? I'd like to challenge you to utilize this passion to fight important local issues, not traffic or the pH level of some dirt. And finally, make a stand in defense of our community. To the second side of the opposition, those opposed to the Islamic Center because of a fear or hatred of Islam. Some people have expressed some anxieties about things like Sharia law and terrorism, which, although they're based on fabrications, are genuinely concerns among people who haven't had the chance to express themselves and get the answers they deserve. So I would encourage you to approach somebody like me afterwards, and please, let's talk, because I believe that through peaceful communication, our community can actually grow stronger through this. But right now, the only communication I'm getting is, you are a terrorist. And let me tell you, I'm tired of hearing that word. Let me ask you, when you can go down the street and you can't even walk around outside wearing a headscarf without somebody yelling at you to go home, who's the terrorist? When you get out of class to find racial slurs keyed into the side of your car, who's the terrorist? When your child comes home from school with cuts and bruises and a damaged self-esteem because beating up Muslim kids is okay, mommy and daddy said they're just animals, then who is the terrorist? When you're afraid to go worship, go to school, to walk outside at night because you don't know when the next arson's going to happen or where the next bullet's going to come from, who is the real terrorist? We're fighting the same enemy, and that's extremism. Moderate Islam is a bastion against Islamic extremism. The values we're teaching here about peace and tolerance are condemning the same acts of evil that you are. Many Muslims came to this country, to this community, to escape the oppressive regimes of their countries and have the freedom to practice their peaceful, pure form of their religion. And we are here to take a stand against extremism. We need you to do the same. In defense of our community, the entire community, not just certain members of our community who have unfounded hatred towards those with different beliefs, but our community as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jamie Sutton. Give us your name and address, sir.
My name is Jamie Sutton, and Although my residence of record is in Goodlettsville, Tennessee, sir, I'm a full-time student at MTSU and also work here in Murfreesboro. May I speak?
Do you reside here?
No, sir.
I'm going to have to...
The Commission has let several others who don't reside here speak at prior meetings, sir.
Point well taken. Continue.
Thank you, sir. I know that my time is brief and that we're probably all sick of hearing about this issue, so I'll try to make my discussion short and not discuss the statistics or facts or studies showing the threat of Muslim American terrorism is exaggerated. Instead, I want to address the real issue at hand, which is fear. Fear inspires doubt in ourselves, suspicion of others, and aggression against perceived threats. It is nameless and unreasoning. I understand this fear, having experienced it serving in the Marine Corps infantry in Iraq, where I came under enemy fire and lost friends to the actions of enemies who could not be identified but blended in with the population in our Ramadi. It is this fear, this kind of thing, which led to McCarthyism, where your neighbors on every side were suspected communist threats, to internment of Japanese Americans when everyone who shared certain cultural values and heritage should equally be suspected of sympathy with the enemy. It is what the terrorists dearly wish us to feel, so that we abandon our values and our way of life in order to buy temporary safety. But we also know how this fear can be overcome. It is the recognition of other people as human beings like ourselves with hopes and drives. I encourage you to read about terrorism and radicalism, learn the motivations, recognize that the terrorists are not a faceless, terrifying mass, but are made up of individuals. That even though terrorism is a terrible thing, it comes from emotions that are sadly all too human on this earth. And then you can stand up against them, even fight them, and say, I will not be afraid of you. Look at the history of our country. Neither mass immigration, depressions, or wars have destroyed our union, even though they were all claimed to. You can see how people are willing to band together to fight for justice, equality, and understanding. And then you can hold fast to American freedoms, even in the face of great adversity, and say, I should not be afraid of you. And finally, I encourage anyone with real concerns to meet their Muslim neighbors. See how they worry about paying for bills, balancing work and family, worry about their teenage daughters fighting with the mothers, how the young men look too closely at pretty girls even though they know better. Listen to their beliefs about God, the complaints about their jobs and their bosses, and how grateful they are to be in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. See how they worry and dream and hope and work and give to this county, and then you will be able to look them in the eyes and say, I cannot be afraid of you.
Thank you. Michael O'Rourke. Michael O'Rourke. I don't see that person coming forward. Donald Westcott. Is Donald Westcott here? Yes.
Thank you. Donald Westcott, 706 Nova Court, Smyrna. I gave everybody a copy of Sharia law for non-Muslims to each of the council members so that we can know what the great issue is. It is not about the First Amendment. The religious aspect of Islam is only a tip of the iceberg. The real issue is the nature of Islam, which is a political ideology with a militaristic agenda to subjugate the entire world under totalitarian Sharia law. To succeed, Muhammad created a dual standard of ethics. Thus, we see two faces of Islam, peaceful jihadists as well as self-destructive terrorists. Peaceful Muslims employ two rules. One, the rule of abrogation, and two, the rule of delayed Sharia. Delayed Sharia is used when the Muslim population is in the minority. Muhammad advises Muslims to scale back their display of Sharia practices with a deceitful facade, keeping jihad hidden and alive in their hearts. Delayed Sharia deceives by telling half-truths, civil disobedience to laws and jurisdictions, disregard of national traditions, fabrication of history, sly legal methods, and lying about ultimate objectives of Islam. In time, when there are enough Muslims in the community, Muhammad commands enforcing Sharia law upon everybody in the world by political, military, and terrorist methods. The ends justify the means, according to Muhammad. Abrogation is when the latter is superior to the former. That is, Muhammad's later dictates have more political power and military authority than his earlier teachings. So-called peaceful Muslims use these earlier quotes on unsuspecting non-believers, knowing full well that their lesser impact in reality. Muhammad's later commands are what the Muslims want: submission of every government entity to political Sharia law, dictation of every aspect of people's lives 24/7, and subjugation or death to anybody who opposes this. Music, critical thinking, political discussion, coexistence of religion will be prohibited by Islamic law. This democratic council will have to be disbanded because it has to submit to local mosque imams or regional mullahs who interpret political Islam without jury and without appeal. Sharia law is what is prayed and taught at every Islamic mosque as politically correct training. The real issue is not the First Amendment. The real issue is political Islam. And as an Army vet, I will wholeheartedly defend my country again. Edmund Burke said, "For evil to flourish, all that is needed is for good people to do nothing." Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. John Green.
My name is John Green, and I live at 614 Shawnee Drive in Murfreesboro. Mayor, thank you. County Attorney and County Commissioners, I have to confess that I have no prepared remarks whatsoever. I didn't actually expect to speak at all, but I will do my best. It's a professional liability. You know, I've followed this purported controversy from its inception, and I'll make just a couple of brief remarks about that. First of all, as we can all see, based on the Commission's perfunctory handling of natural, ordinary course of business that comes before it tonight, it follows certain rules, regulations, and procedures. That, with respect to the Regional Planning Commission's approval of the Islamic Center of Murfreesboro's building site, was exactly what was done then as well. As a matter of law, as a matter of county policy, as a matter of county procedure, there is nothing wrong that has occurred here. Now, that's state law and county law. We've heard a lot about improper notice. We've heard a lot about the failure to conduct environmental studies, traffic pattern studies. I submit to you respectfully, all of that is immaterial. Had that been necessary, don't you think that the Regional Planning Commission would have undertaken those investigations before approval of the proposed site plan? It's business as usual. That really belies the fundamental point. Contrary to Mr. Westcott's belief, there are a number of different kinds of Islam denominations. They're Sharias, they're Sunnis, they're Sufis. How many in the room can tell us the difference other than those of our Muslim brothers and sisters? Very few, I suspect. The point is that the practice of Islam is as diversified as is the practice of Christianity, as is the practice of yoga, as is almost any organizational sort of attention that you can find. Mr. Westcott would have you believe, as would others, that it is not a matter of the First Amendment. It's a simple constitutional issue. We do not have to reach any of the things that I've mentioned tonight if we start there. It is, in fact, a constitutional issue of the First Amendment of the United States Constitution of America. It's there, open, closed, straightforward for anyone to read. Now, I'll close with this. There has been a lot of conjecture that all of the folks supporting the Muslims are outside agitators. I'm going to take this time. I grew up in Murfreesboro. Miss Murphy's Kindergarten on Main Street. That dates me. Campus School, Central High School, Middle Tennessee State University, Vanderbilt Law School. For those of you who think that there aren't committed citizens of Murfreesboro, fifth generation here. I have a sixth generation daughter in a public school now. I submit to you that the embarrassment, shame, and humiliation that I feel as a lifelong resident of this community cannot be expressed in words strong enough.
Thank you, Vincent.
Thank you, Mayor.
Please, let's have your attention. We have time for one more speaker, and I'm going to go back to see if some of those that weren't present are now present and are in the building. If they are, we'll give them the first opportunity. Mr. Kevin Fisher. Mr. Kevin Fisher. Still not in the room. Mr. Fred Dunn. Mr. Fred Dunn. Miss Lisa Moore. Miss Lisa Moore. Mr. Michael O'Rourke. Next person that has not spoken tonight or last meeting time is C. Joe Nelson. C. Joe Nelson. This will be our last speaker.
My name is Cynthia Jo Nelson. I live at 307 Hanby Drive, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, since 1991. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak and for your steadfast fidelity to the law in this issue of the Islamic Center's new facilities. I am a mother and a grandmother and a substitute teacher. I was working at Walter Hill School on a break, watching television, when the second plane hit the second tower of the World Trade Center on September 11th, 2001. Horrified, sickened, and heartbroken, we all watched as the towers fell, and we heard the tales of bravery and sorrow, as well as the story of the perpetrators of these crimes on that day and in the days to come. As I look back on that first day and the following days of horror, one thing stands out clearly in my mind. I never once thought Muslims did this. It never entered my mind to associate this atrocity with one of the world's largest religions. It never entered my mind that a religion so closely associated with my own, even to their belief in Jesus, was responsible for this terrible act. I thought, these are crazy people. People who have no thought for themselves or anyone else. Crazy criminals manipulated by a man full of hatred and evil. And then we went to war. But we never went to war against Islam. We did not go to war against Muslims. We went to war against terrorists. And just as there were Muslim first responders and Muslims who died in the Trade Center at their jobs or in their small mosque on the 17th floor of the South Tower, there were Muslims in the United States Army, the Air Force, the Marines, and the Navy when we went to war. There are still Muslims serving this country in every branch of the armed forces. They are fighting for your freedom as well as mine, and for the freedom of their families. It has been sad to see this community so torn and filled with angry noise by a few people who are too frightened to take the time to get to know these folks, too frightened to learn more about the neighbors and friends who just need more room for worship and fellowship, I am proud that my church has reached out to the Islamic Center. They have reached back. I have learned and made new friends, and am hopeful that others will do the same. This world is too full of hate and fear. Let it not continue here.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our public comment period. Thank you. We've actually gone a bit longer, about 35 minutes. Next, we have elections and confirmations. Mr. Adam Coggin. Commissioner Coggin, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You see on your list we have an election of notaries. Mr. Chairman, I move for their approval.
Second by Commissioner Sandlin. All in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Coggin, give us just a few moments to allow these people to leave our room quietly. Yes, put them all out there as a recommendation from the steering. Okay, Mr. Coggin, I think it is quiet enough for us to now proceed.
Next, we need to announce a commissioner vacancies, 2 vacancies on the Agricultural Advisory Board. We need to announce a commissioner vacancy on the Community Care Board. We need to announce a commissioner vacancy on the Records Commission. All right, now we need to fill a vacancy on the Codes Enforcement Board. The steering committee received, I believe, 2 applications for that board, and the steering committee's recommendation is for Mr. Darrell Alexander. Mr. Chairman, I move for his approval.
Second by Commissioner Farley. Any other discussion regarding this? Okay, all of you in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Motion is carried.
Next, we need to fill a vacancy on the Board of Zoning Appeals. The steering committee would like to recommend Joe Crowell to that position. Mr. Chairman, I move for his approval.
Second, Commissioner Cook and others. Any other discussion? All of you in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Thank you.
Next, we need to fill a vacancy on the Beer Board. The steering committee would like to recommend Mr. Jerry Sartain. Mr. Chairman, I move for his approval.
Motion second from Commissioner Cook. Any discussion regarding this recommendation? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Motion unanimous.
We also need to fill a Beer Board alternate vacancy, and that steering committee recommends Jared Barrett for that vacancy. Mr. Chairman, I move for his approval.
Second, Commissioner Jordan. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Now we need to fill a vacancy on the Highland Rim Regional Library Board. The steering committee recommends Francis James to that appointment. Mr. Chairman, I move for that approval.
Second, Commissioner Jordan. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Now we have a confirmation of appointment of Pettis Reed to the Planning Commission. Mr. Chairman, I move for that approval.
Second from Commissioner Jordan and Mr. P. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Next, we need a confirmation of appointment of the Ethics Committee. Joyce Ely, Robert P., Adam Coggin, Ted Beatty, and Wayne Blair. Mr. Chairman, I move for their approval.
Second, Commissioner Cook. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Now we'll move to the election of the Chairman Pro Tem. We'll take nominations from the floor. and then turn it over to the chairman and the clerk to call the roll. Do we have any nominations for Chairman Pro Tem?
Commissioner Serino.
I would like to nominate Mr. Commissioner Jeff Phillips.
Was that Jeff Phillips, Mr. Serino?
Jeff Phillips.
Okay, thank you. Continue on, Mr. Coggin.
Any more nominations?
Yeah.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Steve Sandlin.
Anybody else? All right. We need a motion to cease.
Get a motion to cease.
Commissioner McAdoo.
Mr. Chairman, since we have two that has been brought up from the floor to serve in the position of Chairman Pro Tem, I would like to vote to amend our rules and allow each one of them to speak to us and state why they would like to be and serve as Chairman Pro Tem.
Do we have a second? Do we have to have a second? We need a second to that motion to suspend the rules to allow the candidates to speak. Commissioner Black. All in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Now, we never did really officially close the nomination, so Mr. McAdoo, it might would have been good if you could also include that nominations cease and that we suspend the rules. Could you modify your motion to include that? And Mr. Black, would that be appropriate? All right, then, thank you. Now, Mr. Serino, you made the first motion to nominate Mr. Phillips, so we're going to let Mr. Phillips go first then. And we won't turn on the speaker. We won't allow 3 minutes, the clock won't be running.
Thank you, Mayor Burgess. This has been an interesting couple of weeks, and it appears that with some politicking that's gone on between Commissioner Sandlin and myself, there is a kind of a divided commission that's about to make a decision tonight. And for that, I apologize. I don't mean to split the commission. My thoughts in running. Of course, I've been in business for a long, long time. I've been in human resources for almost 40 years. And when I look at an applicant, if an applicant doesn't have a plan, they probably won't land that job. And so I put together a plan, and I approached Mayor Burgess with that plan to maybe be a little bit more proactive than that position has been in the past. And as you know, by committee assignments, Mayor Burgess attends almost every committee meeting that's out there. And I know it places a real burden on his family life and personal life. And there are times when I think the Chairman Pro Tem could take some of that burden from Mayor Burgess. And I approached him about that, and he encouraged me. There's been some rumors going around that I've been saying that Mayor Burgess is for me, and that's not true. It's not. I did approach Mayor Burgess, and I told him my plan, and he encouraged me. And that's what I've been telling folks, not that he's supportive of me. He wouldn't do that. But anyway, that's my plan, and I would like to let you guys know I'm retiring in the very near future. I'll have the time available to do that, and I think I'm qualified for the job, and I would appreciate your support.
Thank you. Commissioner Sandlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Steve Sandlin. I represent District 9 out in the Blackman-Amaville area. I've been a commissioner for 20 years. I have been Chairman Pro Tem before under our County Mayor, Nancy Allen. The job duties are to look over the minutes of the last month's meeting, making sure that the business that is taken on through the County Commission has been done appropriately and recorded appropriately. Also, if the chairman, which is the mayor in this case, is not able to run the meeting, the full commission meeting, for whatever reason, sickness or can't be here or whatever, or needs to leave, then the Chairman Pro Tem's duties are to run the commission meeting for him. That is that is all of the duties for the chairman pro tem. That's all we're allowed to do, and that's all that I will do. I've been chairman of committees before, vice chairmans of committees before, and the chairman duty in any capacity at any subcommittee or full commission is to move the meeting along in a orderly fashion, know Robert's Rules of Order, and know the county commission rules. And that is it, and I certainly appreciate your vote, and I thank you.
All right. Thank you, then. We have a motion on the floor. Are you coming back forward, Mr. Coggin? I think then we're ready for a vote. We have two nominees, Commissioner Phillips and Commissioner Sandlin. And Madam Clerk, if you're prepared, we'll have to have a roll call vote here, and you'll have to state your choice, and the clerk will record that.
Commissioner Schaefer?
This is the honor for being District 1. I vote for Jeff Phillips.
Commissioner Black?
Steve Sandlin.
Commissioner Jordan?
Commissioner Sandlin.
Commissioner P?
Sandlin.
Commissioner Cook? Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Farley?
Phillips.
Commissioner Jones?
Sandlin.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Commissioner Sandlin.
Commissioner Turner?
Commissioner Sandlin.
Commissioner Allen?
Commissioner Phillips.
Commissioner Stevens?
Commissioner Phillips.
Commissioner Jordan?
Commissioner Sandlin.
Commissioner Bloom?
Commissioner Phillips.
Commissioner Coggin?
Commissioner Phillips.
Commissioner Young?
I choose to abstain.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner McAdoo? Commissioner Ely? Commissioner Gooch? Commissioner Sereno?
Matthew Young passed. Unless somebody wants to change the vote. Cast their vote that didn't vote. I didn't hear what he said. I think.
But the clerk announced that if anyone wants to change their vote or cast a vote,
You should announce, Madam Clerk, that if anyone wishes to change their vote or give them an opportunity.
All right. Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change their vote, you may do so now.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Sandlin.
I'm going to change my vote to Commissioner Phillips, and I would like to ask the commission to vote for me next year for Chairman Pro Tem.
Make a note of that, Madam Clerk. Any other changes? Now, what is our vote tally, Madam Clerk?
11, Commissioner Phillips. 9, Sandlin.
Actually, 10.
10.
10.
10. Okay, 10 and 11. Excuse me.
No, we had one abstain.
Yes, we had one abstain.
Excuse me. You're correct. Our clerk is correct. It's 11-9. We did have one person that chose not to vote. 11-9. Commissioner Phillips has been selected as Chairman Pro Tem. Thank you very much, Commissioner Sandlin. That was a very gracious and wise move that you made on behalf of unity of this wonderful organization, and we look forward to working with all of you again. Thank you. Would you please continue on again?
Yes, sir. Next, we need to elect the court chaplain. Do we have any nominations for chaplain?
Nominations for chaplain. Commissioner.
I nominate Doug Schaefer for chaplain.
Do we have a second?
Second, Commissioner Sandlin. And others, Commissioner Jernigan, et cetera. Commissioner Farley?
I make a motion all nominations cease and we elect him by acclamation.
Second by, was that Commissioner Phillips? All right. Any discussion? All in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, that's moving along nicely now. Thank you.
And last, we need to elect our standing committees. You have received a list of those committees. And Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of that list.
Second, Commissioner P. Does everyone have a copy of the minutes, or the recommendation is to approve these committee assignments as recommended by the steering committee? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion regarding that? If not, you're ready to vote then. All in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Opposed? That's unanimous. Here's what we must do now. Each committee will remain in session, but we're going to give each committee an opportunity to remove themselves to room 205, and you are to select a chairperson and a vice chair, and you're to come back and tell us who they are and what your meeting date would normally be. So Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee is first. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the Budget and Finance Committee has reported. Joyce Ely is chairperson, Will Jordan is vice chair, and they will be meeting the Thursday at 5:30 before the commission meeting. Next, public safety, please. Ladies and gentlemen, the Public Safety Committee has reported that Gary Farley is chairperson, Doug Schaefer is vice chair, and they will continue to meet on the fourth Monday at 5:30. Now we have Public Works and Planning. Convened, and they have elected Mr. Joe Frank Jernigan, the chairperson, Mr. Jack Black, the vice chair, and they meet the first Tuesday after the first Monday at 6 o'clock. Health and Education Committee, please. Room 205. Ladies and gentlemen, the Health and Education Committee has reported that Jeff Jordan is chairperson, Will Jordan is vice chair, and they continue to meet on the fourth Tuesday at 5:30. Property Management Committees is next. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the Property Management Committee has reported, and Commissioner McAdoo has been elected chairperson. Commissioner Coggin is vice chair, and they'll continue to meet on the fourth Thursday at 6 p.m. That concludes the election of the standing committees, chairpersons and vice chair. We're ready to move forward with the rest of our agenda. There is no unfinished business to come before us tonight. We're starting on the other reports by the standing committee. No reports from the purchasing committee. And we're ready for Commissioner Ely to give us her report on the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee. Vice Chairman of Steering is Commissioner Phillips.
Commissioners, I have 3 resolutions to present tonight, and these resolutions have not been through the Budget Committee because Budget Committee did not have a meeting in September. But because these resolutions are time sensitive, we do need to take action on all 3 of these resolutions. Item K2A, a resolution to approve official bond for Chancery Court Clerk and Master. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the public official bond for the Chancery Court Clerk and Master be approved for an amount of $100,000 effective October 1, 2010, a copy of the same being attached hereto as Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein by reference as if set forth herein at length verbatim. Resolved the 16th day of September, 2010. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Second, Commissioner Cook. Any other discussion on this? All in favor? Let's see, no, we have to do the roll call even on this since it involves money. Madam Clerk, would you, well, we're ready for a vote. Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Okay, please record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
Item K2B, a resolution authorizing facsimile signatures for First Tennessee Bank. Whereas First Tennessee Bank National Association is the depository bank for the Rutherford County trustee account, and whereas the undersigned is the county mayor of Rutherford County, Tennessee. Whereas First Tennessee Bank is authorized and directed to honor checks, drafts, or other orders for the payment of money drawn on the Rutherford County trustee account, account number 1020125545, bearing or purporting to bear the facsimile signatures as follows. For the general fund, Ernest G. Burgess, County Mayor, Lisa A. Nolan, Finance Director. Road and Bridge Fund, James M. Williams, Road Superintendent, Ernest G. Burgess, County Mayor, Lisa A. Nolan, Finance Director. General Purpose School Fund, Mark Burns, Chairman of the Board, Harry Gill Jr., Director of Schools, Lisa A. Nolan, Finance Director. Whereas First Tennessee Bank National Association shall be entitled to honor and to charge the account for such checks, drafts, or other orders, regardless of by whom or by what means the actual or purported facsimile signature thereon may have been affixed thereto, if such signature resembles the facsimile specimen duly certified to or filed with First Tennessee Bank National Association. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners of Rutherford County, Tennessee, that the county mayor and other appropriate officials of Rutherford County be and are hereby authorized to execute the certified resolutions of lodge, association, or similar unincorporated organization deposit accounts and loans with First Tennessee Bank National Association, a copy of the same being attached hereto as Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein by reference as if set forth herein at length verbatim, authorizing the facsimile signatures for the Rutherford County trustee account as listed in the foregoing resolution, effective from and after its passage, resolved this 16th day of September 2010. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Second, Commissioner Sandlin. Is there any discussion? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
Item K2C, a resolution authorizing facsimile signatures for the Rutherford County payroll account. Whereas SunTrust Bank, Nashville, Tennessee, is the depository bank for the Rutherford County payroll account, and whereas the undersigned is the county mayor for Rutherford County, Tennessee, and whereas SunTrust Bank, Nashville, is authorized and directed to honor checks, drafts, or other orders for the payment of money drawn on the Rutherford County payroll account, account number 70200381118, bearing or purporting to bear the facsimile signatures as follows. General Fund, Ernest G. Burgess, County Mayor, Lisa A. Nolan, Finance Director. Road and Bridge Fund, James M. Williams, Road Superintendent, Ernest G. Burgess, County Mayor, Lisa A. Nolan, Finance Director. General Purpose School Fund, Mark Burns, Chairman of the Board, Harry Gill, Jr., Director of Schools, Lisa A. Nolan, Finance Director. Whereas SunTrust Bank, Nashville, shall be entitled to honor and to charge the account for such checks, drafts, or other orders, regardless of by whom or by what means the actual or purported facsimile signature thereon may have been affixed thereto, if such signature resembles the facsimile specimen duly certified to or filed with SunTrust Bank, Nashville. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners of Rutherford County, Tennessee, that the county mayor and other appropriate officials of Rutherford County be and are here authorized to execute the corporate resolution and certificate of incumbency deposit accounts, a copy of the same being attached hereto as Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein by reference as if set forth herein at length verbatim, authorizing the facsimile signatures for the Rutherford County payroll account as listed in the foregoing resolution, effective from and after its passage. Resolved this 16th day of September 2010. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Second from Commissioner P. Any discussion? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to suspend the rules to present another resolution that was not on our agenda from the General Purpose School Fund.
Second from Commissioner Farley and several. All in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Please continue.
Again, Commissioners, this budget amendment has gone through the Health and Education Committee, but because budget did not have a September meeting, it's being presented tonight. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the General Purpose School Fund be amended as follows: to provide a transfer to the School Federal Projects Fund to avoid temporary cash deficits that may be experienced due to the Race to the Top program and the second year of the ARA IDEA program. For the benefit of the new commissioners, you're going to see this quite a few times, ARRA, ARA. That stands for the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. These are federal grants. We have several of these federal grants. They are reimbursable grants. That means we expend the money before we actually receive the money. And the IDEA program stands for Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. We will have operating transfers from the unassigned fund balance of $500,000 to transfers out $500,000. Resolved this 16th day of September 2010. Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Commissioner Jernigan, second. Any other discussion? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
There is no report from the Health and Education
Mr.
Committee.
Mayor.
Excuse me, Mr.
That's okay.
Jordan, sorry I wasn't.
That's all right, sir. This
observant.
is not a report. This is just to remind the Commission that we have, just making certain that everyone got a letter from Mr. Gill inviting us to the school board offices on Tuesday, the 21st, at 5 o'clock. I believe there's a meal involved and a tour of Blackman, Laverne, and Smyrna High School. I'm not certain how the tour is going to be conducted, whether we're taking cars or a bus. I don't know anything about any of that, but I'm just letting you know at the time and reminding you, and I appreciate your indulgence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, on the Property Management Committee, the offer of the gift of that land has been withdrawn. Therefore, no action is appropriate to be taken on this particular agenda item, so that item is not ripe for any discussion. So that's been removed from your agenda item. Public Safety Committee, Commissioner Farley.
Commissioners, we've got a resolution here tonight for some new contracts for some counties throughout the state of Tennessee. And for some of the newer commissioners, what we're doing is we contract with other counties to provide juvenile inmates, incarcerate them here. And what this does, this kind of helps us as far as taking in monies to offset the budget there. Rutherford County inmates have priority over there, so these contracts here help us offset the cost, is what this is. So, whereas the attached contracts between Rutherford County Juvenile Detention Center and Lake, Benton, and Macon counties are for housing of juvenile offenders. Copies of said contracts being attached hereto as a collective Exhibit 1 and incorporated herein at length as set forth verbatim and are in the best interest of the citizens of Rutherford County. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the appropriate officials for and on behalf of Rutherford County be and hereby are authorized to enter to and execute for and on behalf of Rutherford County the contracts with Lake, Benton, and Macon counties for housing of juvenile offenders. Resolved this 16th day of September 2010, and I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Second from Commissioner Turner. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of that, please say aye. Are there any opposed? That motion is carried. And there is no report from the Steering Legislative and Governmental Committee or the Public Works and Planning Committee. Please make a note that you've probably already discovered those, but the clerk has left at each of your seats a commemorative seal oath that is yours, so please be sure you get that. Is there any other business? Sir? Did we do? We did the notaries. I believe, yes, Commissioner Coggin did that. Commissioner P. and then Schaefer and then Mr.
Quick
Coggin.
reminder that Kittrell Volunteer Fire Department is having a country ham breakfast this Saturday between 6 and 10 o'clock. Would like to invite all of you and the public to come out. Also, there's a Kittrell School reunion that will run from 10 to 5 p.m. It'll be at the new Kittrell School. Most of the people will be going to the ham breakfast, and when it closes at 10, the doors will be open at the new school at 10. There's also planning to have a covered dish there either noon or 12:30, so there'll be plenty to eat that day. But I'd like to invite all of you to come out. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Schaefer.
Well, I know they have great ham breakfasts out there in Kittrell, but they also have some pretty good ones up in Laverne. And this weekend happens to be Old Timers Day in Laverne, and from 6 to 10 is a ham breakfast at Laverne Rescue Squad on Gamble Lane. The parade starts 10:30. And then there's fun and games at Veterans Park afterwards, entertainment and all this. So come on out and enjoy yourself.
Commissioner Coggin.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say I failed to express my appreciation to the commissioners, the steering committee, and in particular to Commissioner McAdoo and Commissioner Robert Stevens, only two commissioners who did not get their first choices in the standing committees. And I appreciate their selflessness and their willingness to work for what they seem to feel was the betterment of the full commission. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Is there any other business to come before this body? Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.